and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. Passenger plane Embraer 190 was on its way from Baku to Grozny in Russia, which has crashed in Caspian Sea, city of Aktau in Kazakhstan during an emergency landing. There were as many as 67 passengers, including 5 crew members who were on board the passenger plane when it crashed in Kazakhstan. The authorities have said that there are only 25 people that have survived the crash. The injured had been rushed to the nearest hospital. Flight J28234 took off from Baku at 3:55 AM UTC time. The contact to the flight was initially lost at 4 AM. The track was regained at 6:07 AM before it was lost again. The flight was diverted to Aktau due to heavy fog. An unspecified emergency prompted the pilot to request an emergency landing. A video circulating on social media shows anxious passengers inside the plane attempting to comprehend the developing crisis, followed by an oxygen mask drop down. The plane reportedly crashed at 6:28 AM, 3 kilometers away from Aktau area, which is an oil and gas hub on the eastern shore of the Caspian Sea. Medical teams were quickly dispatched to aid the survivors of the air disaster. Now, initial reports indicate a bird strike as the reason for the emergency landing. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Transport of Kazakhstan has launched an investigation into the crash. I'm going to dive deep into this discussion. Joining me on the telecast is Major General Brajesh Kumar. He's the former DG Military Infrastructure. Major General Brajesh Kumar, sorry state of affairs, the fact that there are 67 people who were on board that flight. It has crashed no less than on a international holiday, which is Christmas, where millions and millions of people are going home, heading to their family members, wanting to spend some quality time with their family, with their children, with their wife, with their son, and lo and behold, you are dead in a plane crash because the weather was inclement, because it was too foggy. Whose fault do you think it is?
Megha, it's firstly very sad on a Christmas day, when the whole world celebrates, we have this little accident, and the accident of a civilian aircraft early in the morning. But then the surroundings which probably make the accident happen look so intriguing. Look at the major issues. The flight starts from Baku and its destination is into west-northwest or north-northwest. It goes to the Baku, it goes to its destination and probably it cannot land there. Thereafter, it's advised possibly to go and land to the next airfield 100 kilometers away to the east on the western bank of the Caspian Sea again. No news. Possibly the airport is locked. It loses control, it loses communication with the radar. It blanks out. And suddenly after an hour, traveling 300 odd kilometers across the Caspian Sea, it makes a visibility, and then it tries to land at Aktau in a very funny fashion, shall we say, as the aviation expert might say. It lands, a lot of people survive, those in the tail end section survive, and of course unavoidable death. Now the issue is still under mystery. What caused this kind of a thing to happen?
Right.
Is it the environment due to the war between Ukraine and Russia? Is it mechanical failure? Is it the bird head? How come with so many technology devices in early hours of the day, we cannot make things out? Possibly as the time goes along, some more details will come.
Yes.
But at this point of time, it's shrouded in mystery, and there's cause for concern for civil aviation across the globe, not only in the region where the war is taking place.
Yes. Yes, Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, a very sad day. The 67 people, out of which 25 of them have already succumbed. There could be perhaps more injuries, more people who may be feared dead in this tragic accident. just 24 hours ago, even the American airports authorities, they had halted flight operations in wake of the inclement weather, and they resumed it after a few hours. There was inconvenience that was faced by the passengers, by the people who were traveling to their near India ones, traveling to their home or wherever it is that they were going. But you think it's better safe than sorry?
Megha, thank you. Well, it is too early to make any calls or make any judgment on this issue till there is some more clarity. And what could be the possible motives? Because if it is, a plane crash which has happened in a war-prone area, war zone, whether it is due to any purpose, due to any motive, what is the passenger manifest? Were there any good assets of whichever country on board who were to be eliminated, or what was the reason for this to happen? And it's very sad. It's happened on Christmas Day, and it's very unfortunate for the families concerned. But to currently draw any conclusions is a little difficult. And it's surprising, they have been talking about bird crash, they've been talking about technical glitch.
Yeah.
Then there's also reports of radar jamming. Then the way the plane has broken up into two parts, with the front and the rear separated. And normally, in most plane crashes, it's very unusual for there to be large number of survivors. In this case, there were more than 50% of people who have survived, fortunately,
Yeah.
so far. Some of them are in critical condition. And it's, flying into Chechnya. There is the war going on between Russia and Ukraine. It is going very near that area. So what happened exactly, who were involved, nobody has claimed any responsibility so far. So I think we'll have to wait a little bit before jumping to any conclusions as to what could be the possible cause and the motive for this, if at all there is if it is not accidental, if it is purposeful, if it has been sort of triggered by any explosive on board, or what has happened exactly. So there are too many uncertainties in the air right now. Back to you, Megha.
I'm going to come to my third guest. Vandana Singh is an aviation expert, and these points that have been mentioned by Ambassador Kapoor, talking about foggy weather and talking about the plane hit a bird and therefore lost its balance, and technical glitches and radar jamming. Now this is all going to be speculation up until there is more investigation that takes place and information comes out. Meanwhile, people have lost their lives. Again, the question about, and also taking a look at that aircraft, it's just broken into two parts. And as Ambassador said, that there are more than half the people who were on board the aircraft who have survived this crash, and it is also miraculous because as soon as the aircraft hit the road, and it just exploded instantaneously, and only just charred remains of the aircraft are at this point of time on our screens, even as these emergency services, firefighters have been brought in, and then the fire was extinguished. With this very skeletal information that we have available with us, what could have gone wrong, and why do you think all these issues could have come together all together, causing the flight to have crashed? Or at this time, this is just mere speculation and nobody really does know what actually happened?
Thank you, Megha, for having me on this show. First of all, indeed, it's a very tragic day, that too of Christmas, when this has happened. And heart goes out to all the families of all concerned. Secondly, like both the panelists, the esteemed panelists mentioned, there could be a lot of causes behind it. We are talking of this happening in a war-torn zone, number one. Two, there is a lot of news about GPS jammers, especially in the Russian part. What could be the motive behind it? We can all understand that that is a war-torn zone. Thirdly, typically, as you're asking, now there has been a bird hit. There is a report of bird strike on this aircraft. It's a pretty robust aircraft, even though it's odd 20 years old, it's very robust. It's carrying an X amount of passengers from Baku to the final destination. And then there's a right stall. So probably, if you ask me, and as an aviation expert, what I could say and what I can judge from very preliminary information that I can gather, that was probably a yaw and a roll. meaning that probably in the stall and crash sequence, firstly, there is loss of lift. That means, in layman's language, that as the aircraft wing sort of stalls, the lift gets reduced and the aircraft begins to descend. This is what happens. And if the stall is very severe, the aircraft may enter into a spin or a spiral. In this case, it went totally right down vertical.
Yes.
So it could be probably a yaw and a roll, which means that the bird strike damage affected the aircraft's control surfaces, leading to uncontrolled yaw, that is rotation around the vertical axis, and roll, rotation around the longitudinal axis. Then this causes the aircraft to tilt or bank sharply on one side. This is what caused the, probably the stall and the crash. And once, of course, things are recovered from the tail, as we know, the black box is always on the tail. Once things are recovered, the recordings are there, the passenger who have miraculously survived, then we will come to know the real story. But the first-hand information is that this was a yaw and a roll caused by a bird strike. And yes, it was in a war-torn zone. GPS jammers were there. The pilot must have followed the entire protocol along with the co-pilot, informing the air traffic controls nearby, looking at the nearest airport to land, followed the procedure to the T, and yet it went fully on the right, and then it just crashed as a ball of fire.
Right.
And miraculously, there are survivors. So more has to be known, but this is typically yaw and a roll caused due to a bird strike.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you. Over to you.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I also have with me my colleague Aditya Vadhavan. Aditya, what's happening right now? What is the latest information that we are getting on the ground? Now, there have been various possibilities that are being talked about how the plane ended up crashing. There may have been a bird strike. There talks about technical glitch, foggy weather. What's the latest update you are getting?
Well, Megha, the latest update, has been that the rescue efforts are still on. It was, because, miraculously 28 people have, survived in this accident. And among them, one is a 11-year-old girl and a 16-year-old teen who have been hospitalized. Possibly the reason was that the pilot couldn't get the clearance from ATC, and that is why the plane has crashed. It needs to be.
Okay, we'll try to get Aditya in just a moment. I also have with me on the telecast Major General Rajan Kochar. General Kochar, do you think there can be mechanisms that can avert crises like these? Again, I will say this is the winter season. You face foggy weather, inclement weather. Do you think more presence of mind? Also, if there could be precautions that could have been taken, maybe if the flight could have been delayed, a situation such as this could not have occurred?
Yeah, Megha, I think, first of all, I think the reasons, it's too premature right now to come to any conclusion. But if we take the probability of a bird hit, which seems to be quite high in this case, then pilots today are trained to avoid bird migration routes and follow altitude recommendations. And most of the time, if we have seen some data I have, which suggests that every year in the United States, there are 13,000 cases of bird hits, and almost 65% times the aircrafts have been damaged. So it's a real life issue, which I think the civil aviation industry is facing today. And mitigation measures, first of all, the pilots are trained Secondly, the ruggedization of the aircrafts are also there to some extent. They can withstand bird ingestion, and the windshields are also reinforced to resist this bird impact. But it may not happen all the time because it depends where the suction of the birds take place. It can also directly get into the engine, and which I think this case has happened because all of a sudden the altitude loss has been there, and uh, this is a live problem. I think the airports have to initiate stronger measures for ensuring that no birds are flying in the vicinity of the airport, because they have to carry out a modification of the habitat around the airport. The food resources have to be removed. The water bodies near the runway they have to be made less attractive to the birds. These are some of the important measures, I think, which needs to be initiated. And one last point which is bothering me right now is the GPS part of it, because a jamming of the GPS normally doesn't take place. And secondly, refusal of an aircraft to land at a particular airport and then diverting the aircraft from that airport would require a further investigation, because these are the two aspects which are troubling my mind as of now when I follow the bird hit theory, because in all probability it should be the bird hit theory. But then what were the circumstances under which this aircraft was diverted? And especially when we are talking of a war-torn zone, Chechnya is in question, Azerbaijan, Armenia, because Azerbaijan and Armenia are at war with each other, and this was an Azerbaijan aircraft, and the number of passengers in this aircraft were more Azerbaijanis, and a few were Russians also. So this conspiracy theory is not striking me as of now, because it's too early to make any kind of presumption.
I think one should refrain from making such assumptions. Absolutely right. It's judicious, best to refrain from making certain kind of assumptions or any kind of conjecture in terms of whether this could have been a conspiracy, because at the end of the day the focus is that there are 25 people who are dead, there are several other who are critically injured, they are hospitalized. The majority of the people who were inside the aircraft, 67 of them, have been rescued up until now. There is going to be a probe that is going to be initiated. The emergency services are in full swing at the crash site. There have been condolences that have been offered by Kremlin as well as by the Kazakh government and by the Azerbaijan government as well. Like I said, as the day progresses, we will get to know more information and be able to decipher how this crash came to be. I'm out of time. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, and thanks for watching NewsX.